Yo, how's it going, everyone? I hope you all are having a wonderful day. I'm Amos, and in this video, we're going to cover 4 more new Shonen Jump mangas. I'm going to be discussing the characters, the plot, the artwork, and most importantly, will this series last in a competitive Shonen Jump environment? Now, one of these mangas is exclusive to Shonen Jump's online subscription service, Shonen Jump Plus, and I've been recently told that those mangas are not under as much pressure as the weekly Shonen Jump mangas because there is more room for other mangas to be added to that web service. So that series doesn't have as much to worry about. So instead of talking about if it's gonna last a long time, I'm gonna talk more about how likely it is to become a household name. Is it gonna be incredibly popular with readers, or is it gonna be one people will just read on occasion or just eventually drop? Now, I am gonna keep the discussion of these series relatively spoiler free, but I will be spoiling some key plot points from the early chapters. I'm gonna try to not spoil anything past chapter 2 if it has gone beyond that point, but some of these series are not even past that yet, so I will end up spoiling the start of these series, but I'm not going to try to spoil too much as to leave something there for you to enjoy. And as per usual, I'll be covering the mangas in order of the one with the least amount of chapters to the one with the most, saving the one with more for last because then I'll have a better idea of how it's going to turn out. And with that out of the way, let's get started. The first series I want to talk about is the newest one added to Weekly Shonen Jump, and that would be 2 on Ice. It is written by Elk Itsumo. I may have mispronounced his name, and I do apologize for that. But anyways, this mangaka has published a few one-shots, but he's also worked on a small-time Weekly Shonen Jump manga called Fabricant 100, which recently finished its publication, I believe. And now that it's done, he moved on to his own manga in 2 on Ice. This is his first major publication, and you could sort of tell the artwork does seem amateurish, which I do hate to say because you could tell he did put a lot of effort into his artwork, especially when it comes to environmental art. Most mangakas, when it comes to the background, might be very simplistic or not even draw anything at all. So the fact that Elk is putting in a lot of effort into the scenery is really respectful in my opinion. I have a lot of respect for mangakas who really want to set the tone of the story by adding a very nice scene to it. It may just be the background, but that may influence what you feel when you're reading the panel. So the fact that he's really going out of his way to make sure the scenery looks decent is earning some positivity points with me, but I really hate having to say this, but it's not really well drawn. The effort is there, but the execution is flawed. Now, that doesn't make the story unbearable or even pose as a distraction while you're reading. I just personally couldn't help but criticize it. The artwork may be flawed, but the story is intriguing. The story follows a little kid as he becomes interested in figure skating after watching a child prodigy perform pro-level moves. He began practicing on his own in hopes of eventually catching up to her, but then one day she disappeared from the figure skating scene. The boy eventually got older and ended up running into a girl in an ice rink who bared a similar resemblance to the child prodigy. After witnessing him fail to perform a triple spin, which is a high-level technique, she began interested in his capabilities. She could tell he had skills, but he was an amateur at heart. He never had an official teacher, but despite that, she invited him to form a partnership with her and do dual figure skating. So the story is going to follow these two as they grow and develop as a figure skating pair. So it's a cute slice of life romance sports manga, but I feel it's very simplistic in nature. Depending on how they do their relationship, it could be really good or really bad. And seeing how simple and rushed the relationship is making it feel unnatural. Like, I know what drew her to him in the first place was his moves, despite him having sloppy execution, but she is supposed to be a pro-level skater, or at the very least, the best in terms of amateurs. And just because he was able to perform a triple spin with sloppy execution, she suddenly was interested in him. Like, it's sort of indicating that there is no one even remotely close to his level, despite his sloppiness, which I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't know much about figure skating, so I don't know how accurate that description is, or how difficult it is for someone to perform a triple spin. The way they described it, it's incredibly difficult and something only someone on a pro level can even attempt. So if that's the case, her being interested in him makes sense. I'm just worried that they're gonna quickly rush their relationship. And if that's the case, there's probably gonna be a lot of drama that comes with it. Otherwise, the series is gonna get really boring really fast. And depending how well they do this drama, could make or break the series. Like, if they just force it into the series just to get cheap thrills, I'm gonna lose interest in it right away. So hopefully it's paced well, it's not rushed, there's no forced romance, no forced drama. If it all just transitions smoothly between major events, then I'm on board. You're gonna have me invested throughout this publication, just based off the first few chapters. I'm not doubtful of its potential, I'm doubtful of its execution. Can Elk transition fluently between the romance and the drama, while still keeping us interested in the ice skating aspect. Like, I don't believe you need to be invested in ice skating to like this series, and that is what Elk seems to be focusing on. It's like the pairing, it's the couple, it's the two characters and how they're gonna intermingle with each other. How is their relationship going to grow revolving around ice skating? Is there going to be some sort of comedic aspect? Because based off of the first few chapters, I personally don't think there is going to be. I feel like Elk wants to keep a very serious storyline and just focus on like the competitions, the characters' interactions with each other, and primarily their romance. I feel like that's going to be like the main emphasis of the story, the romance between the characters. So will it last? I really want to say yes, but then I'd be lying because I don't think this series is going to last very long. It's probably not going to be like the first cutoff point, like 14 chapters. That is roughly the first cutoff point. I feel like it'll get past that, but it might stop around maybe 30 chapters. I feel like that might be the second cutoff point where they're like, hey, we'll let you push a little further than normal, but if you can't garner a audience after this point, you're done. So I'm gonna say roughly 30 chapters is how long this is going to last. Hopefully I'm wrong and it lasts more, not less, because I've been wrong about that and some series have lasted less. But anyways, let's move on to the next manga. The next one is probably one of the most hyped mangas pre-release. Before this series even came out, people were hyping it up, like unbelievably so. And that was just based off of the artwork and the initial plot summary, and that is Kagurabachi. Now, this series is written by Takeru Hokazono, and once again, this is his first publication. However, he has done a couple of one-shots, one of which I had already read, Roku no Meiyaku, I believe it's pronounced. And I had thought that one-shot was really good, so much so I thought there was going to be an official publication on it. But it appears to be that instead of doing a continuation of that series, he did a completely new series. Although it does seem like some characters from Roku no Meiyaku resemble characters from Kagurabachi. So I think he may have just transitioned them into this new series and changed their appearance and maybe even their names a little bit, but some personalities do kind of resemble each other. But anyways, enough about the characters. Let's focus on the artwork. And I feel like this artwork may have been a part of the reason why this series was so hyped, because Takeru does an amazing job of his artwork. It doesn't feel like it's a first publication type of artwork. He definitely has some experience. He may have been an assistant on some other series, but I haven't found that information yet. From what I've seen, he's only published 2 one-shots, but I refuse to believe that's only the case. He's definitely done some other work before. Now, in terms of the story, based off of the first few chapters, it's a story about a man whose father was murdered and he's trying to find the people who did it to get revenge. That's the baseline of the story, but it also revolves around these magical swords that his father created, because this is a modern day world with the existence of powerful magic. There are sorcerers within this series, and they're the ones responsible for killing his father and stealing his magic swords, which were apparently used to help win a war. So now this man is on a journey to not only locate the sorcerers who killed his father, but wipe out their evil organization and recover the swords his dad created, because the last thing he wants is for the swords his dad created to be used for evil. That's not why he created the swords. He created the swords to find a new era of peace, and he was aware that swords are an instrument for killing. So he was fully aware of the hypocrisy behind his smithing, and he wanted to make sure his son truly understood what it means to forge a sword. Unfortunately, he lost his life, but not before he was able to create one more sword which his son now wields in the act of revenge. So that is something I really like about this series. The idea of hypocrisy is a major theme in this. Not only did a swordsmith create weapons of mass destruction in order to achieve peace, but now his son is going on a massive killing spree for the sake of that peace as well. So I like series that do that, where they have hypocrisy as a major focal point in the plot. Killing for the sake of peace. That seems to be the major theme of this series, and it works very well because the protagonist is a major edgelord. That also has to do with the significant part of the hype behind this series. The character's design, his personality, and his motivations are all incredibly, not necessarily dark per se. On the surface they are dark, but there's good intentions behind them all. Even his own cold personality has some goodness to it. He cherishes those he's connected to, his friends, his families, the lives of innocent people. These are all things he cherished, but he has a very cold demeanor about it. And even as a child, his expressions were very emotionless. Although his own inner voice seems to be very comedic and goofy at times, his physical appearance was very edgy in nature. Now, the rest of the characters around him, like his father's very close friend, they all had very goofball-esque personalities. Like his father would wear the most ridiculous shirt and say something very cool, but the ridiculous shirt catches your attention where it's like, wow, this guy's saying something very cool, but that shirt just makes him look so weird. So like everything he just said has been devalued. And it's the same thing with the friend. He he is kind of an idiot. He has very weird timing when it comes to his punchlines, which sets up a really interesting dynamic between him and the protagonist, because the protagonist is like a very cold and stoic character. He doesn't show a lot of emotions, and he seems to be very indifferent about everything, whereas the friend is like very goofy, very loud, very vocal. So the dynamic between them tends to be kind of off, but also it's supposed to be like a break from all of the edginess of the protagonist, and he's sort of there for comedic relief. I just feel like the timing between it doesn't work as well as you would like it to. Like when you have a very dark moment and having the side character just come in and say something rather goofy, it's kind of a turn off. It's not as like insane as he comes in and says a funny one-liner to make you laugh, but it just misses because you're sort of shocked at the moment. It's not like that. But having like the character have this very dark moment where he's brutally murdering Yakuza members, having the guy come in and is like, you seem to have got this. I'm just gonna go take care of whatever it is outside. You handle that, buddy. It's all you. It's sort of like a sudden switch in dynamic. Like you're really invested in the intensity behind the battle, and then the side character just comes in with a goofy one-liner and then leaves. It takes away from that intensity without sort of like changing the tone of the story. It's very awkward at moments. It's not a turn off, but I don't know. It's very weird for me that Takuru constantly does this, and it seems like it's going to be a running gag throughout the series. I honestly feel that Takuru is trying to mimic Himoru Awakawa's style with this, which she so magnificently displayed in some of her more popular works, including the world-renowned Fullmetal Alchemist, and even more recently in Demons of the Shadow Realm. Both of those mangas had really good comedic timing. Even in the middle of a very serious situation, it just smoothly went from super serious to comedic without losing that super serious tone. And I just feel the way Takuru does it is just a cheap imitation of Hiromu's style. That feels like a very mean way of describing it, but that's just how I feel about it. But now onto the question, will it last? Yes, I have no doubt about that. The hype behind this series is intense. The people who are hyping of this series are so far in your face. There's very little room for it to fail. Not saying like these people are being obnoxious. I can understand the hype behind it. It's a very edgy show. I'm a fan of edginess, so I'm also behind the hype train. It's just I'm very critical when it comes to stuff I enjoy. The more I enjoy it, the more critical I am of it. So I'm gonna be nitpicking something that I find very good, which this series is. It's very good. Is it perfect? No. Is it the next big series? Probably not. Is it going to be very enjoyable, probably develop a cult following that will carry this series until completion? I'm 99% certain of it. I don't have any doubts that this thing will succeed. If it fails, it's because the author did something so ridiculous that people were completely turned off by it and dropped the series completely. Which has happened before. There are a couple of series where the author did something ridiculous in their personal life that the series just got canceled because of it. Or if they made one single plot decision that took the story in a completely different direction that nobody liked, and as such the series had to end much sooner than you would expected. It has happened before, so I'm not going to count my chickens before they hatch, but as of this point, I say it will last. Next up, and probably my favorite series on this list, MamaYuyu. Don't let the name fool you, it's not a goofy parody manga. It's a very serious story. It's written by Yoshihiko Hayashi. It's a story about a world that has a hero and a demon lord. And normally, they're at odds with each other and fighting a never-ending war. However, the previous hero sacrificed their life to end this war and bring an era of peace. And then a new hero was born, and they were an orphan, and then they were adopted by the current demon lord. And they grew up being raised by the demon lord while still being the hero in an era where humans and demons live together. They're coexisting with each other. And so now this hero has to live with the expectation of being a hero without having a reason to fulfill that purpose. So he's living a very conflicted lifestyle. He doesn't hate demons, of course not. He was raised by one. He views the demon lord as his own mother. But he is a hero. He's questioning if he's truly needed within this world. And as he's beginning to doubt the reason for his existence, he meets a hero from another world. Now this hero grew up fighting against demons and the demon lord. So unlike this hero, he views demons as the enemy. But he sees that this world is a peaceful one where humans and demons are coexisting. So at first, when he first appeared, he may have been very on edge when he saw the demon lord, but then he learned that no, this world is different than mine. They're not fighting each other, they're living together. So at first, it seems like everything's gonna be okay until the demon lord from the other world shows up. And so the hero of the other world was willing to kill this world's hero and take his place, because if there are two heroes and two demon lords in a world, that world could collapse. Because there's only supposed to be one. Having two can cause major disaster. So he is planning on killing this world's hero and his world's demon lord so there could be one of each and he could live a life of peace. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Instead, and this is sort of a major spoiler, but you need to hear this to understand why this series is good. What happened was, he was surprised by the demon lord of his world draining the power of this world's demon world to become stronger. And it was about to kill him, but this world's hero saved his life and receiving a fatal wound in the process. The other heroes saw this and then realized, like, what I've been doing is not what a hero is supposed to do. This kid, who doesn't have a reason for being a hero, just showed him that he is more of a hero than he was. So he used all of his power to defeat his demon lord and then sacrifice his life to save this world's hero. And in that moment, he informed the hero that he was more of a hero than he was. In his world, he sacrificed friends and family in order to carry on his duty, which he believed was not what a hero should do. A hero should be self-sacrificing. And as such, he validated this kid's existence. And so he lost his life to save this kid. But now, something crazy happened. Because both the hero and the demon lord teleported into this world, they caused other demons and heroes to appear throughout the entire world. So now the hero needs to go on and fight to protect his world from collapsing from the multiple heroes and demon lords that are appearing here. Now, how he's going to do this isn't exactly explained. It is hinted that he's gonna have to fight both the demon lord and heroes of other worlds, but then that wouldn't make him into a hero. I have a feeling he's gonna try to find a way to send the heroes back while defeating the demon lords, but it could also be possible he won't have a choice but to become an anti-hero and kill other heroes to save his world. And now this is setting up a really interesting dynamic. Right now the protagonist has this sort of internal dilemma of, is he truly a hero? A hero is supposed to fight the demon lord, but the demon lord is a good person. They're not trying to destroy humanity. As such, this world has no evil entity for him to defeat. If there's no evil entity, can he truly be a hero? His answer at the time was no. There is no evil entity. There is no need for a hero. Why was he a hero? Does he have a reason for being born? And it was the demon lord who was giving him that reason. She loved him severely. She raised him for the past 18 years. It hurt her deeply hearing him say he had no reason to live. She absolutely did not want him feeling that way or even thinking about that. So now there's this huge dynamic where he doesn't know if he has the right to be a hero, but he has a duty of living. And even more recently, a duty for fighting. When he was living in peace, he didn't think much about him being a hero, but now that he has to fight, he truly understands what it means to be a hero. He now has to put his life on the line, and that thought scares him. He nearly died recently, but now he has to fight in a life or death battle to protect his world. All that confliction he had earlier is not completely gone, but is replaced by a new confliction. Is he willing to be self-sacrificing? He believes he is, but when push comes to shove, would he be able to sacrifice himself to save someone else again? Or with his fear of dying take over? This dilemma where it feels like the protagonist is also the antagonist, he needs to fight his own inner demons to achieve his goals. It creates a plot thread where you're just going to be watching the protagonist fight himself, emotionally and physically. The physically being like his will to act. Is he going to be brave enough to act in a life or death situation? Would he be willing to put himself in harm's way to save another? Or would the burden of being a hero be too much for him to bear? Stuff like this make me really enjoy this series and make me think it's probably going to be one of the better series on this list if it wasn't for Kagurabachi and all the hype surrounding it. Now, the artwork for this series may not be on the same level as Kagurabachi, but I think the story is. Now, the artwork doesn't seem to be amateurish, which is especially surprising because I had thought this person had at least been an assistant for several other works, but when I looked them up, I saw they only had one shot that came out. I'm pretty sure they have been an assistant, I just haven't been able to find it yet, because the artwork doesn't seem to be like as new as you would expect it to be. 2 on Ice is what I'd expect to be an amateur type of artwork. This one is much better than it. Like 2 on Ice has the worst artwork out of all 4 of these series, but I'm pretty sure all of these series are first time publications. The mangakas are all new to the scene. They're not experienced mangakas. They may have been an assistant for 1 or 2 mangas, but they're brand new to the publication scene. So, will MamaYuyu last? It better, because it's my favorite series on this list. And if you guys have been following me lately, you would know that some of the other series that I was a huge fan of and thought very highly of have recently been canceled. I'm really hoping it doesn't happen with this series because it is way too good. It has so much philosophical and psychological content to it that just have me so intrigued by every single panel on the page. It has me thinking and questioning the philosophy behind being a hero, the mindset of the protagonist, the absolute lunacy behind this world. and how insane the story can become. I hope Yoshihiko really sticks to the mindset of having the protagonist have a philosophical conundrum, which leads him to dealing with the consequences of him doubting himself and whether he deserves to be a hero, which then leads to him having an internal dilemma that he has to overcome. I hope it sticks with that and just really makes you question what it means to be a hero, because that is what's drawing me to this series and making me invest so heavily into it. Alright, now we're moving on to the final manga on this list, and that would be Shojo Null, the only Shonen Jump Plus series on this list. It is written by Kanae Nakanishi, and it's illustrated by Akima. Now, Akima has done the artwork for a few mangas, and he's even authored one of them called Drug It. So, he is an experienced artist, and it does show within the series. Now, Kanae has a couple of works that have been published, one of which is both a light novel and a manga. So, I don't know if she directly worked on the story for the manga, or if it was just adapted from their light novel work, but it does seem like they have experience writing stories. So, out of all the other mangakas on this list, this one had the most experience. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean this was the best series on this list. It was good. I will say that for the time being. It was good. It just wasn't the best. Now, as to what the story is about, it's about a world where people have these organic robots called Gijins, which are human-like machines that serve the whims of humans. They have robotic parts as well as fleshy parts. So they do have eyes, they have skin, they have mouths, and they are completely loyal to the humans that they serve. They do have restrictions, like they can't hurt humans, even if ordered to. Now, I am sure there are exceptions to that rule, because there are weaponized Gijin which seem to be intended for military use. So the weaponized Gijins may be permitted to attack humans, while the regular servant Gijins are not. And now, the story goes that a truck filled with these weaponized Gijins was traveling, and then there was an accident that destroyed almost all of them. One of the Gijins got away and was discovered by a kid who was living alone. Now, these weaponized Gijins have self-repairing technology, so they can regenerate any injury. And the Gijin that managed to escape the accident recognized this boy as her master, and the boy accidentally gave the order for her to stick next to him. He had intended to have her hide in his house, but because he told her to stay with him, she followed him out. They were discovered by a bunch of random YouTubers who were on the search for the missing weaponized robot, and they found him walking the street, and they freaked out that they found the missing robot. However, their viewers were questioning the authentic nature of their stream. They felt that since they instantly started streaming and they instantly found her, that it must have been a fake. They were just faking this to get views. As such, they took them back to their place and had planned to call the special police to verify their claims and prove that this is the weaponized robot, and they just coincidentally found it the moment they started streaming. Now, these people were famous for making videos of them torturing Gijins. Now, at this point, we learn a little bit about the protagonist's backstory. Apparently, his father was a researcher and scientist who was studying the Gijin that was being created, and he discovered that every Gijin has this robotic bug planted inside of its head, and this bug is supposed to suppress their conscience, proving that the Gijin are living creatures. They're not robots. They're people whose emotions are being suppressed and forced to subserve humans. And the moment he made this discovery, the secret police bursted into his research facility and executed him and all of his assistants. And the protagonist was there and witnessed it all. So seeing these Gijin getting tortured was horrifying for him, because he is aware that they're living beings. They're not just mindless robots without a will of their own. They have a will. It's just being suppressed. And then we return to modern day, and one of the YouTubers noticed that the Gijin had some bloodied robotic parts in her hand. These were the parts of the other robotic Gijins that were in the truck with her. She kept them as a memento of them. The YouTuber freaked out and slapped them out of her hand, which infuriated her. Then suddenly, the YouTuber's Gijin went out of control and grabbed a chainsaw and started attacking them, which eventually led to the female Gijin to getting impaled in the head with a chainsaw. This dislodged the bug in her head, thus freeing her consciousness. And since she is a weaponized Gijin, she instantly healed the wound, and it got revenge for her and the other Gijins these people had tortured. She ended up killing them all. And it seems like this series is gonna follow her and the protagonist as they not only avoid the secret police, but kill the cruel humans who have been torturing the Gijin. So this series gives off a very anti-hero vibe to it, and it carries a very dark aesthetic with the characters being very violent to the Gijin, and this girl avenging the Gijins. The protagonist himself being aware that the Gijin are living people and seeing the cruelty occurring to them is very indifferent about the Gijin getting revenge. He's not on a mission to kill all humans, and he doesn't care if these people get spared. He's gonna let the Gijin do what they believe is right, as long as he's able to protect this girl in front of him. If he's able to protect her, that's all that matters. As long as she and him don't get caught and executed, he doesn't care what happens along the way. So this series is very violent and graphic, so if you're not into that, I would recommend you don't watch this series, because its entire selling point is its violence. It all revolves around fighting back against humans who are torturing the Gijin, as well as avoiding the secret police that are hunting them down. The story is well thought out and methodical, but once again, it's an anti-hero series with a lot of violence and action to it. There is some semblance of drama with the protagonist knowing that the Gijin are actual humans who are simply having their own free will suppressed and being forced to do things against their will, and how he deals with that fact. He will love to save the Gijin if he can, but he doesn't have the capability of doing that without putting himself and the people he cares for at risk. So he's also trying to get this female weaponized Gijin to understand this is how society view Gijins. They are toys to be played with and disposed of when they're done. However, she isn't willing to just lie down and accept this, and he's not really mad at her taking action. All he cares about is that she is safe, which leads to a very conflicted dynamic of him wanting to protect her, him not really caring if she kills humans, because humans are killing Gijin, who he views as humans as well. So he's viewing the regular humans as monsters, but he's not going to go out of his way to stop them. If he starts telling people the Gijin are humans, they're going to report him to the police. And as we have seen, the police are very violent and trigger happy. They're more than willing to kill people for the joy of killing. It's not simply a matter of they don't have a choice. They definitely do. They have a choice. They're just choosing to kill. And the protagonist is aware of this. So he is very passive in his nature, while the girl is very aggressive. So they have an interesting dynamic with each other, seeing as how he's trying to protect her, but she's trying to avenge the Gijin and save them, which leads to a lot of slaughter scenes. So once again, very graphic in nature, and seeing how this is a Shonen Jump Plus series and not a weekly Shonen Jump series, it's not at risk of getting canned if it doesn't gather a following. So instead of talking about that, I'm gonna talk about how popular can this series get. It's not gonna be as popular as Chainsaw Man. I'm pretty certain of that. Chainsaw Man had a really interesting dynamic with how the devils work, how their contracts with people work, how the Devil Hunter Association worked, and how Denji fit into all of that. His interactions with the characters was actually entertaining to watch, whereas with this one, the interactions are pretty bland and basic. It is fun to watch, but it's not as immersive as something as Chainsaw Man was, because you really felt bad for what happened to Denji as a kid. You understand his ploy. You understand his desires. His desires are simple. While these characters, their desires are not conflicting, but not on the same page either. Now, the girl isn't as gung-ho as I made her out to be earlier. Her dreams is to make a lot of friends. And watching people kill her own kind is infuriating to her. It's frightening. It's sad. It's something she doesn't just want to stand by and watch. While the protagonist is more than willing to stand by and watch, whether it's the Gijin getting killed or people who are killing the Gijin who get killed. So his indifference is a bit of a turnoff, but the girl's sort of like happy-go-lucky nature and then switching over to a violent nature is a very interesting dynamic. It does draw you in, but it doesn't immerse you into the series. The world itself is pretty basic, and the whole robots are actually humans who are being enslaved and being forced to do things against their will. It's not a completely unique concept. The way everything is all integrated within each other is, but it's missing that sort of wow factor that Wild Strawberries had. The whole things with the plants is far more interesting than with the humanized robots. As such, I don't think this is going to be super popular, but it's not going to be disregarded either. If you read it, if you're a fan of violence, you're going to be more than happy with this series. It's just me personally, I wasn't as immersed as I would have liked to be. I would enjoy if they built upon the world more and be a little more unique with their characters and not just some happy-go-lucky gun-ho addicted cop, indifferent boy, and cutesy girl who wants to make a lot of friends while also protecting her kind. I may just be a little bit overcritical about it, but that's just how I feel. So that's gonna be it for the video. A lot of really interesting series that are coming out lately. Some may be overhyped than others, some may be a little too basic, some might be a little too far out there, but all in all, they're all an interesting read. They may not be entertaining, they may not be awe-inspiring, they may not be the most groundbreaking, influential, innovative series out there, but they're gonna make for a very good read. And I feel like most of these are gonna be around for a very long time. And with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!